And to tell us more about this, Professor Kim Hyun-wook from the Korean National Diplomatic Academy joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's first start off by talking a little bit about the background of this ongoing conflict in Syria. So many countries involved now, and we know that Western countries, including the U.S., have said the use of chemical weapons in Syria is crossing that red line.
Yes, I think the use of chemical weapons have been regarded as one of taboo in international society because of its brutality and inhumanity. So I think in 2013, when there were usage of chemical weapons by Syrian government, at that time the Obama government also touted it as a red line, but did not respond appropriately, did not do anything about it. So there was a serious criticism within the United States and within the international community about the inaction of President Obama. But we don't know what's the truth. I mean, Syrian government, Russian government argued that it is not Syrian government that have used chemical weapons. So I think now the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which is the United Nations, national agency, is now in Syria to, check out whether it is really Syrian government that have done using the chemical weapons or not. But actually, because of this brutality of the character of the chemical weapons, the President, Trump has used, military actions against it before and also this time again.
So, I mean, what would it mean then if it actually turned out that the Syrian government didn't use chemical weapons?
Well, I think in that case, maybe there will be apologies by the United States, but I don't think that's truth because the U.S. has all the important intelligences about what's going on in the international community, and I think they made it clear that it is the Syrian government that has used chemical weapons.
All right, so there are concerns that this war in Syria is getting bigger, involving more countries, and is getting more serious. In fact, we heard earlier in our newscast that the U.S. plans to slam some new sanctions on Russia for supporting the Syrian government. So what are we expecting on this front in regards to Russia-U.S. relations?
Well, the basic posture of the President Trump on this area is not to intervene so much, actively, because of his basic tendency not to intervene in international, affairs so much. It's America first. He wants to focus on the interest of the United States, does not want to use too much money outside, whether in military actions or some other issues. I don't think he's willing to go out there, intervene too much in a degree to have conflict with the Russian government. Maybe this time the military strike on Syrian, facilities also have aimed to only to focus on prohibition of, use of chemical weapons this time. So I'm not sure if he would go that far to have a serious conflict with the Russian government. But I think the issue would be who are in the cabinet of the Trump government. The new security advisor, John Bolton, I think he's a very pro-hardline military option person who is against the Secretary Mattis, who is very serious, who has experienced that there should be no military action because of the U.S.-Russia conflict possible. So I think it's more about the inner bureaucratic conflict, which determines the future course of Trump government later on, not the President Trump himself.
Okay. Now, what's interesting, though, is that the UN Security Council actually rejected a Russian resolution, which would have condemned the U.S. and U.K. and France for carrying out those airstrikes in Syria. And what's interesting is that we heard Russia, China, and also Bolivia voted for the resolution. So where do we see this going for all the countries involved now?
Yes, I think things are getting more serious in United Nations UN Security Council. I think it's also divided within the Middle East area. The crescent of Shia Islams, which is kind of expanding now. The Hezbollah in Lebanon and also Syrian government and Iraq, Iran, and also leading down to Oman and Yemen. It's very large countries forming a crescent of Shia Islams. And against that, the U.S., Israel, and Saudi Arabia are kind of trying to cope with those countries. And also, as I have mentioned, John Bolton, who is aiming to collapse the regime in Iran, is clearly against this kind of group. And also, this is also overt now in UN Security Council resolution with the Russia and China supporting this group. So I think even though Trump government does not want to intervene too much in escalating the conflict in the international community, I think the conflict itself is now becoming a reality, at least at the United Nations Security Council.
So talking about chemical weapons, I mean, I think North Korea kind of comes into play here because back in February of this year, a leaked UN report indicated that North Korea actually sent Syria more than 40 items related to ballistic missiles and chemical weapons programs, and back in 2012, between 2012 and 2017.
Yes, there have been a close ties between Syria and North Korea, not only on chemical weapons, but other military cooperations, including nuclear and other missile capabilities. A lot of technologies has been transferred to Syrian government from North Korea. One media reported that even at the production facilities, which has been the target of the recent military strike of the United States, there were several North Korean scientists and technicians who were supporting and giving a advice to the Syrian government about the technologies of chemical weapons productions. So I think it's very serious implication. Which means that when there was assassination of Kim Jong-nam in Malaysia, North Korean agencies have been using the chemical weapons to assassinate Kim Jong-nam. So I think this kind of a strike on Syria would have a very important implications for the North Korean issues later on.
So you mentioned Trump's new security advisor, John Bolton, and how he might have impacted this whole situation in Syria and the airstrikes, U.S. airstrikes on Syria. Now, we have that North Korea and U.S. summit coming up. So, and obviously John Bolton is the new national security advisor. So how do you think that might affect the upcoming summit, his presence?
Well, I think the North Korea would kind of feel, frightened or concerned about the recent strike on Syria. Clearly the focus of North Korean leader Kim Jongun is how his regime would be guaranteed its security and safety. Unless that is guaranteed, I don't think Kim Jong-un will be willing to go out there and denuclearize itself. But I don't think it would be easy, for the states to give any measures to guarantee its regimes. I mean, Kim Jong-un, whatever he gets obtained as important measures to, guarantee his regime, I don't think he will be really satisfied. I mean, to the last minute, he would doubt and what the U.S. intentions will be later on. If finishes denuclearization, maybe he will be still the target and victims of assassinations or decapitations of the United States. All that kind of concerns, I don't think would make him seriously think of denuclearizing itself. Okay. So that's one worry I have. And also, secondly, even though there will be successful North Korea-U.S. summit meeting, which I think Trump wants and Kim Jong-un wants, the afterwards, the implementation process, I don't think will be easy because of all these concerns of Kim Jong-un and also such a policy objective of the United States not to repeat the previous failure.
And although probably North Korea is separating this Syrian attack issue with itself, its regime itself, but still, I mean, what are the chances that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un could possibly change his mind or his perspective on denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula before this summit with President Trump happens?
You mean change his mind not to denuclearize itself?
Just on denuclearization itself, I guess, because what the U.S. is demanding from North Korea right now is complete denuclearization, right? right? But then North Korea is kind of talking about phased, step-by-step denuclearization. And in fact, it might ask for something in return, which it hasn't done officially now. So I'm saying, would he possibly change his mind on that front?
Well, I think, the U.S. is making clear on and on that there will be no incentives given to North Korea or any sanctions softened before North Korea, does something to denuclearize itself substantially, which is, different from the North Korean, approach. As you mentioned, that North Korea wants to have, face-to-face incentives given to North Korea by way of, processes of achieving it to its denuclearization. They're still sticking to their own stance. South Korean government, I think, is now trying to do something coordinating these two different stances. I think so. That's what that's why I'm thinking that the summit meeting, the agreement will be only for the agreement itself. I mean, they would not contain any details. They would just have, maybe 2 or 3 steps, very simple steps. Two countries would agree upon denuclearization, and accordingly, there will be incentives given by the states to North Korea. All these kind of, no detailed agreements. But I think what is more risky is, implementation level, process afterwards. I think it will be not easy, and maybe North Korea will try to drag on and make more time allowed for denuclearization, which I don't think Trump would allow easily.
I guess this is a little shift from what we're talking about today, but I mean, obviously the interKorean summit is coming up next week, and we have the high-level talks coming up this week for preparations for that. So what are some of the things that we could keep a close eye on that regard?
I think major, things that two Koreas are now discussing before the summit meeting is agenda, definitely. South Korean government have proposed a 3 agenda. North-South exchanges and cooperations and denuclearization, and also how to have a perpetual peace in the Korean Peninsula, including military, easing the military tensions. But these are things that have not been accepted by North Korea. So based upon South Korean government position, there will be more talks with North Korea. What will be the ultimate agenda in the summit meeting, and in specifics, what would be the specific agenda based upon these main agenda. And second thing would be more about the logistical things. First would be the protocol things, and second would be media report, and third would be safety guard issues. So all these things would be, detailed in discussions between two Koreas. For example, if Kim Jongun, walks and cross the demilitarized zone, would he also come with his wife, or in what level would President Moon go out there and welcome Kim Jongun? All that kind of specific protocol things that we'll talk more.
All right, we'll definitely keep our eyes on the high-level talks coming up this week. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you.